Good evening. Here it is. Well, it's actually the wee hours of the morning. It's well soon to be. It's actually 12:13 a.m. on the 27th of September 2024 on the Gregorian calendar. Good day. Night, however you want to refer to it. Not morning because I'm not mourning anything. All right. I want to share with you some of the things I've been studying. Look, P. Diddy is all in the news, right? If I was uh, in another country, continent, whatever, I'd be looking over there like, what are they doing over there? What is going on? Why and how such a thing could happen, right? So when these crisis situations come out, it is a crisis. I mean, it's a wake up call to our law enforcement, to our whole system over here at United States of North America, Rock Turtle Island, right? This is a wake up call. Like, what in the world is going on, right? How is it that people are flooding into our borders without assets? Other, continents, countries, they let people come over. You have the right to travel, but you also have the right to identify yourself. You're going to come over here with nothing to contribute to our society, just to be let over here to cause a racket or ruckus. Like, no, people should be taken care of where they are. They should be taken care of where they are. We need to create systems where that can happen. Okay. And isn't someone responsible for the borders? Isn't someone responsible for keeping our people safe over here? Well, you know, part of that responsibility comes from people like me mentioning, what are we doing here? We just become lawless. We don't keep rules anymore. What's happening? So, along that lines of just taking the opportunity to look at in the mirror at what we, each one of us, can do to make things better over here. For me, that thing is to just share with you what I'm learning, share with you the importance of compliance, the importance of keeping a rule. Keeping a rule. So tonight, I just want to share the importance of reading something over and over for comprehension until you're sure on it. And how do you know you're sure? Because you can say, hey, I applied it. I know this is how it goes. Now, what I'm finding amongst the community of people who want to live free and be free, self govern, do no harm to anyone else, right? Mind your own business and do well, help others, right? All these things, right? I'm finding that people come up with these philosophies and it's based not on what is real and written down. Now, just because you read something, that doesn't make it true. You want to read multiple sources. You want to listen to multiple people's perspective on things so you can really gain a full understanding of something and apply it to your life and to your situation, right? So, like, again, this is a situation like a crisis thing. You're recognizing, okay, no one can sit around and just blame P. Diddy for what it is, because he had to be permitted to do this. This had to be in a system where this could happen, right? So the matter is that our systems here at the US of A, Rock Turtle Island, they're perfect. They really are perfect. It's the people who are not applying the systems. The systems are ancient. My ancestors helped build these systems. Yes, right? And let's just let's just learn. Let's just read. Let's just let go of our ego and re-examine some things that we say. And know that everyone teaching you, when they are fully convinced in their mind that they are correct, they can lead you down a path that is not correct. And no matter how they receive the information, whether they just had a misunderstanding or someone lied to them, you will be able to decipher what is right when you take responsibility for yourself and read, go to the source yourself. And if it ain't right, if what they're saying doesn't line up with what is on the written word on the page, then you might want to get more information about that before you just blindly go following behind someone who might unawares be a Judas goat. Or maybe they're not a Judas goat. Judas goat, look that up. All right. Um, Maybe they're not. Maybe they do more good than harm. At the same time, let's just walk in truth. The truth is our friend, right? Deception and ignorance and lack of knowledge, that is the enemy. Hasatan, Hasatan, Satan, Satan. All right. And so that could be inside of us, it could be outside of us. These adversarial spirits and adversarial situations, adversarial to our well being and our happiness and our peace. All right. So, what I want to talk about tonight is something very important. A lot of us are learning how to express ourselves in writing, taking complex situations and cases and framing them in the law, framing them in what's true, framing them in what's accurate, because that is life, that is abundance, that is safety, that is joy, that is peace. And there are those who are desperately trying to take that away from us. And so we want to be competent in expressing ourselves. Now, the way a sovereign, someone who is wanting to govern, the way they express themselves is through affirmations, through affidavits, through declarations. And I should have said that first. So, declarations and affidavits, right? We want to do that competently. But you hear everyone say, not everyone, but many people say different things about how to make your affidavit. An unrebutted affidavit stands as law in commerce. So when someone says something about you, you need to, well, this is not blanket statement. I take that back. You don't always need to um, rebut it, because sometimes you don't want to come into joinder with them. So you do need to know how to write an affidavit, though. And you need to know how to certify it. All right. That's what my focus is going to be. It's going to be on the certification of an affidavit or a declaration. All right. Now, you want to read codes and statutes. Now, if you're of the law and you're private, you may not always use that code exactly or quote it or what have you, but you can refer to the principle of it. And it's important that you know the principle. All right. That's the most important thing. So this is having to do with making an affidavit or a statement or affirmation, and what that is supposed to look like as far as how do you certify it? How do you get it certified? Do you need to have it notarized every time? Well, let me look at the pros and cons of having something notarized. Now, the pro of having something notarized, especially if you need to identify yourself, that you are who you say you are. Let's say you are you're certifying a trust document, the not the whole document, but certifying, let's say, the certification of trust. You're certifying that this is a trust, and you want to use that certification of the declaration or trust or whatever at a bank, a public institution. They just might, reasonably so, for reasons of fraud or theft. You don't want to be stolen from, do you? You want to have that certified. Now, if you're coming out of the public and into the private, and maybe you don't have a national identity card, or maybe you don't have a properly written passport or what have you, or you don't have a visa, you don't have the things that a bank reasonably would require of you, because we all know that there is a global world trust, and our entities, our individual is an entity, a type of entity. Your individual name is a type of entity. All right. And I mean, how is it that someone can have more than one nationality? Right. So some people have more than one individual in that sense, right? When I say entities, I'm also referring to trusts, businesses, associations, corporations, all this and that jazz. All right. So now, if it's the case that you need to be identified, I get it. You know, if you're not in a nation state, or you don't have someone who can bear witness to it, who you are, and you feel comfortable with getting them to be a witness for your papers or your documents, you might need to go to a notary. All right. Now, there are times when you might have to have something certified, and if you're writing and defending your estate, it's going to happen often. Now, is it the case that every time you need something certified that you must go to a notary? Must you go to a notary every time? Well, some people will say, yeah, you have to get it notarized. Anything going into their system has to be notarized. When I say their system, I mean the public Article 1 tribunal courts that many of us are working our way out of. Some of us didn't have any problem with them. All of a sudden, you know, the journey out, it sometimes creates more contact with these tribunal courts if you don't come out properly, right? And so I was not told correct things early. And so then you end up, they're making money on you on your way out. All right. Let me share with you what is in writing. That's all I'm going to do. This is about reading and rereading. And the first read through, I'm going to just read with no comments about what it is. No comments. I'm just going to read what it says here. This is 28 U.S. Code. Some people say that also stands for unum sanctum, but most would agree. 28 United States Code, subsection 1746. All right, let's read. I'm going to probably read this 3 times because we need to break it down. And here we go. Whenever, under any law of the United States or under any rule, regulation, order, or requirement made pursuant to law, any matter is required or permitted to be supported, evidenced, established, or proved by a sworn declaration, verification, certificate, statement, or affidavit in writing of the person making the same, other than a deposition or an oath of office or an oath required to be taken before a specified officer other than a notary public. Such matter may, with like force and effect, be supported, evidenced, established, or proved by the unsworn declaration, certificate, verification, or statement in writing of such person, which is subscribed by him as true under penalty of perjury and dated in substantially the following form. If executed without the United States, I declare or certify, verify, or state, under penalty of perjury, the laws of the United States of America that the foregoing is true and correct. Executed on, put the date and the signature. That's one. Now, if executed within the United States, its territories, possessions, or commonwealths, I declare or certify, verify, or state, under penalty of perjury, that the foregoing is true and correct, executed on the date and signature. Now, let me just share some things. I'm going to read it again, but some things that stand out for me. First of all, it gives instructions on if executed without the United States, and then it gives instruction on if executed within the United States. Now, if you are knowing that you're not a U.S. citizen, maybe you are a national, maybe you are American national, maybe you are a national non-citizen, maybe you know that the United States is a corporation, and so you are executing it as your right as a living, breathing man or woman without the United States, right? That's one thing you want to pay attention to. So are you executing this oath or affirmation without the United States? Or are you affirming it within the United States corporation? All right. So personally, I'll just say right now, my status on paper, and I will update it, is as a U.S. national. However, I will update it to be a national non-citizen. All right. So for me, I will be coming without the United States. All right. If you're in an official capacity as an officer or what have you, then you would be within the United States. All right. So let's look here. And this is important because many of you have matters that are involved are the Article 1 tribunal courts. All right, they're corporate courts. They don't see the living. And I've even been in situations at the territory where I am, and I've called an Article 3 court, and I've had it where a magistrate will walk out, but then come back in. I've had it where a magistrate was like, "Do you even know what that is? Stop playing with me." Of course I know what that is. Or I've had it where this is just a waste, and I'll just participate in how they would like, and then maybe sign something under duress, and then they put papers behind the paper that I put my appellation on. How unethical. So I'm very careful about these things. But let's read this again, because what stands out for me is knowing, are you within the United States or without, based on your status. And your status has a lot to do with your behavior. It's not just you made a declaration and it is what it is. It has to do with how you contract or come into agreement. All right. That's one thing that stands out. Another thing that stands out for me is, let me just tell you what it's saying. Let's say you created an affidavit. At the end of the affidavit, you want to certify the affidavit. So let's just say I did a writ of mandamus. I said writ of mandamus, and then I say affidavit of truth, and then I write the affidavit. Then underneath that, I would say certification of writ of mandamus. and then I would certify that what I said was true to the best of my knowledge. Now, I actually have a different way that I execute the certification or the verification or the statement. And so basically, I declare, or I could say I certify or I verify. I usually say I certify under penalty of perjury, or I'll say I'll certify. I'm learning to do under penalty of perjury. That is the correct way, to my understanding. Okay. Now, depending on your nation state, or does your nation state have a formal way of making these declarations? Whereas to say by the Zodiac Constitution for more Americans, or some other declaration, it's going to usually be in threes. So for me, it's in a three. It's by the honor of my forefathers. It's by the laws of my aunt. And depending on what it is, I might say under the laws of the United States of America / Amarak, right? They're together, there's a treaty, and there were two different sides to the treaty. And so I know that that's where my protections come from, is that treaty that covers the indigenous peoples. And I know the United States of America, that they do have something called the Christian slave codes, all right, that we were put under in 1724. So I choose the Amarak side as a indigenous woman to the lands. All right, so with that, so those are the three that I use, how I use them. Now, I will read it again, and I'm going to ask you to listen for what it doesn't say. What it doesn't say is you have to have all declarations notarized. It doesn't say that. So the second time, I'm going to read it without the parentheses and just type, this is 28, I said it earlier, but I'm going to say it again, 28 USC subsection 1746, unsworn declarations under penalty of perjury, which if you're going to put something in a tribunal, I would recommend that. Of course, some people have their own Article 3 courts, and they're organized enough to do that and stay on top of things. And you know what? It's not a bad idea if you know what you're doing. But also know they cannot hear you or respond to you. So make sure that whatever you declare or order, you know how to enforce that. All right. Whenever, under the law of the United States, or under any rule, regulation, order, or requirement made pursuant to law, any matter is required or permitted to be supported, evidenced, established, or proved by the sworn declaration, by the verification, by the certificate, by the statement, by the oath, or affidavit in writing of the person making the same declaration, verification, certificate, right? Affidavit or oath. I'm going to skip the parentheses part. Such matter may, with like force and effect of the affidavit, oath, right? It shall, with such like matter and force and effect, be supported, be established, evidenced, or proved by the unsworn declaration, certificate, verification, or statement in writing of such person, which is subscribed by that same person as true under the penalty of perjury and dated and and dated in substantially the following form. And I'm not going to read it again. It just goes on to, if executed within or without the United States, I declare, I will read this part. I declare, I certify or state under penalty of perjury the laws of the United States of America that the foregoing is true and correct. Now, mind you, the United States Corporation is on top of the United States of America. There are three United States. It's the United States Corporation Company, the United States of America Inc., and United States of America de jure. Okay. So, with that being said, what you want to focus on is where in there did I read did you have to go to have all your statements be notarized? You know what? First of all, like I said, if you don't have a notary that knows you personally, then you might be tempted to pull out a document, an ID that doesn't properly identify you. You might be tempted to do that. And so on, you want to create the jurat yourself. Go on for whatever state that you are domiciled in, that you're going to have this notarization completed, and you find the block that fits your situation. They're verifying your identity. They're not verifying your document or what have you. But it is thought that if you go to a notary, many times it is thought that you're putting yourself back in that corporate jurisdiction. But I write my jurat a little bit different, and I make sure in the book, you want a notary who does keep a log, right? I make sure I go to a notary who knows me personally, and so they can attest that I am who I say I am. They're not attesting to the truthfulness of my document or papers. It's none of their business. They're attesting to I am who I say I am. And if they know me personally, they don't have to write down that they know me through a state identification, because I don't have one, right? I don't have a valid state identification. I used to hold one that was voided out. I haven't even seen that lady, but what's bad about that? I was unlawfully detained, and they took that and processed me. Is that something I can move against? Yes, but wouldn't it have been better if they were like, "Dang, I guess I gotta use that that passport she has there," right? Maybe they wouldn't have held me so long. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't have stolen my silver. I don't know. But a lot of the policy enforcers are not informed, and they really don't know how to read. They don't have an incentive to read. And so, no, it is not appropriate to be increasing insurance for people who are not educated. All right. So, let me read this again, because we want to be clear. When someone tells you, I don't care how educated they are, when they tell you something and they make reference, they even read it to you, and you're like, that's not what that says. It's not what that says. You want to go with what's in writing. Or if they can't explain to you why there's an inconsistency, just let the little eyebrow stay up and you do what makes sense. Because people, they make up stuff. And if they're not humble enough to correct themselves, then you'll be following them down an expensive road. It's expensive, particularly for me. And so I replaced my conveyance because the last one I had was stolen. So, and I was transitioning into the private, and I was waiting for it to be repaired. And therefore, and I don't regret not having insurance on it. I didn't have insurance on it. I was not doing anything illegal. It was in between getting service from one shop to another, but it was a pretty decent car. And long story short, it's expensive getting around using ride shares and doing these like, so let's say you want to do something online, $20, and you're creating several documents a day, and you're getting things notified. It can be very expensive, and so it's no little thing. And also mailings are very expensive, especially if you have a post office that does not honor the postal union treaties. Okay, so um, with this being said, you want to be mindful to have processes that are doable. And if you're spending a lot of FRNs, which you might still be using the floating rate note, you're spending a lot unless that's a part of getting out and transitioning into stepping into our wealth as a people. It is expensive to do and it's dangerous to do. But um, so we don't want to recommend people put out resources that they don't have and for some reason that you like made up because you're not reading properly. All right, let's see. Wherever under any law of the United States, and notice here it says, or under any rule, regulation, order, or requirement made pursuant to law. So, there are laws other than the law of the United States. Yes. There's treaty law. There's the constitutional law of whatever de jure nation state in which you domicile. So we're going to read that as well to verify and substantiate my claim that it is not necessary or even appropriate to spend your energy getting everything notarized if it's not required. There are things that are required. You need somebody to verify what you're doing, whether it be in your nation state or out. And you might need a notary. You just might. But there are other things where you're not following the law to actually go, you're just making something up. And you look to be incompetent because you had something notarized that didn't even need it. All right. And if you notice in some of these tribunal courts, the attorneys, they don't get it notarized. Is it because their attorney and their signature is better than yours? No, it's not. So if they're not notarizing, having things notarized all the time, then why do you have to? Anyway, wherever. But when it comes to financial instruments, you're probably going to want to at least have a witness. Okay. Boom. Wherever, under any law of the United States, or under any rule, or regulation, or order, or requirement made pursuant to law, to another law, right? Any matter is required or permitted to be supported, evidence established or proved by the sworn declaration, verification, certificate, statement, oath, or affidavit in writing of the person making the same. Okay, and then it says, other than a deposition or oath of office. See, so now a deposition, and we're going to look up that word, or an oath of office, or an oath required to be taken before a specific officer other than a notary public. All right, let's look up deposition. DEPOS. Deposition. A deposition act of depositing someone, especially a monarch. All right, the process of giving sworn evidence, the deposition of 4 expert witnesses. more. The commissioner to take deposition from a witness, a statement, a sworn affidavit, attestation, the action of depositing something. Pebbles form the deposition of calcium in, well, it's not that one. All right. All right. In writing of the person making the same other than a deposition or an oath of office or an oath requiring to be taken before a specified officer other than a notary public. Such matter may, with like force and effect, be supported evidence established or proved by the unsworn declaration, certificate, verification, or statement in writing of such a person, which is subscribed by him or true under penalty of perjury and dated in substantially the following form. Now, if you are depositing something, is that a little bit different than, let's say, you're asking or demanding something? It's not the same thing. You want to be clear. So some things that you do have to go into court, you want to put in court, you're going to want to get notarized. As right here, it's saying a deposition, right? You want to do that. A deposition, when you're depositing something into the court, some of those things, though, it's not a declaration or verification. It's going to be, you could be saying, asking by what authority, or writ quo warranto. For writ quo warranto, is that a deposition where you having to make a statement, give testimony to something? No, it's not. So it depends on what it is you're doing. If you're asserting something, asserting a statement, seems like you do want to have a notary. But if it's something where you are, like I said, writ quo warranto, or you're asking them what authority, or you're asking for something that doesn't say that, you need a notary. Something else I want to bring here. This is the state constitution, the republic. This is pre-1933. There might be some edits, right? But if you could go back further, that's great. This is as far back as I can find. And much of it is 1933. Let me switch. Boom. Do you see what I see? Not yet. It says, this is common law. How do I know this is common law? Because it says so right here. It says, where is it? It says that the people who are inhabitants of Maryland are entitled to common law. So that's how I know it's common law. All right. And so the people are entitled to that, but they have to know that they're people. It says we the people of, here it even says the state of Maryland, but it would really more so be Maryland du jour, but it says the state of Maryland. Grateful to Almighty God for our civil and religious liberty, taking into the serious consideration the best means establish a good constitution in this state for the sure foundation and more permanent secure thereof declare blah blah blah. The thing about it is, as I study and learn and know the importance of the federal government is like an overlay, and some of the injustices that have taken place in banking, they happen at the state level. And so a lot of the national federal laws are protection for the injustices that happen at the state level. So for anyone to give this idea that the federal protections are not valid, they don't apply, that's not them, well, do you realize the protections that you get from the federal overlay? It's not all there to harm. It really isn't. Okay. And so down here it says in Article 5, and the inhabitants of Maryland are entitled to all property derived to them from or under the charter granted by His Majesty Charles the First to, okay, to, how do you say his, Cassius Calvert, Baron of Baltimore. So, oh, here it is right here, Article 5, Part C, that notwithstanding the common law of England, nothing in this Constitution prohibits by trial jury less than 12 jurors. Now, where's the statement that it says that the inhabitants of Maryland are entitled to the common law of England? That's the statement that I'm looking for. Okay, I'll find it. Anyway, let's go down to Article 39. Article 39 says, and there are even forms in the county where I am that, well, I'm not in that corporate county, but it states an opportunity for you to choose the jurisdiction, choose the venue, choose the law. And there are boxes for common law, and there are state codes that specify the right of one to choose the applicable law. All right. Article 39, that the manner of administering an oath or affirmation to any person ought to be such as those of the religious persuasion, profession, or denomination of which he is a member, generally esteem that the effectual confirmation by the attestation of the divine being. Again, generally esteem the most effectual confirmation by the attestation of the divine being. What it doesn't say is the effectual confirmation of the divine being in front of a officer of the court or anything. Like I said, when you're needing to have your identity verified, which does make sense, that is important. You don't want just people to say they're you and you're them, and you haven't identified yourself. That would be lawless and ridiculous. However, there are actions that you will take where your seal, being your thumbprint and red or what have you, that is enough. And so, like I said, you're making your statement, you're verifying that you made your statement, and you're doing so under the penalty of perjury or under the Zodiac Constitution or whatever has worked for you. And I say I've done mine in threes, right? But the point is that you don't have to go and give your energy source away every time. And I have had actions be successful without taking it out of the jurisdiction, which is with me in that case. Then I did it as a Moorish American, and I did it as a Moorish American, and I used my seal thumbprint. That's what I did. And so I'm just saying, um, when people tell you things, just read it again and again until you understand it. And as I'm even reading it too, when I read the part about deposition into the court, right? I understand like certain things you're gonna want to have a notary, but not all of them. If you're asking for something, it's not you're not under deposition. Your statement or your writ of warrant isn't necessarily under deposition, particularly if they violated you in the first place. While I'm even asking, what authority do you have? I don't have to go get it notarized. That I want to know what authority you have to mistreat me or violate my rights. Okay, because, well, that's if you're coming from within their jurisdiction or not. But so read. If you want to be safe than sorry and go, you can go. I know I've been in situations of where I've gone, and it was very, 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 very clear to me that I didn't need to do that. And I've made statements about repatriating to the land and that sort of thing. So it made it, the message I got was a clear and strong message. Hey, if you are who you say you are, Alice, why are you going and running and getting that notarized when your thumbprint and your seal, top and bottom, is enough? And that's also you're actually, in some situations, you want to invoke the power of post. And if you're having someone else notarize after you to verify who you are, after you use your thumbprint, depending on the situation, I'm not sure that you're invoking the power of Postmaster General. All right. Thank you for listening and letting me share my reading. When I read, it helps me, and hopefully it'll help someone else too along this journey. And keep studying. And if you have a teacher, you cannot ask them questions. I don't know what type of teacher that is. Of course, there's order and there's time for everything, but you want someone who is slow to anger. You want someone who carries a fruit of the Spirit with them. And it's one fruit, all the many different attributes of love. It's still one fruit of the great Spirit, Yahuwah. Peace and much love.